Hello, world. We are here to review a Gurion guitar. We're here to listen to a short story history of Gurion guitars and see the actual guitar and see what it's made like and what it looks like. But before I start with that, I wanted just to say a few words. I've done many reviews, articles, radio shows, but this is the first time I'm doing it in English. So bear with me. Hopefully it will be interesting. And now to the Gurion guitars. So if you're here, if you listen to this video, if you watch this video, you probably have heard of Gurion guitars, or maybe own one, or maybe seen one or played one. Maybe you know some history of those guitars, maybe you don't. So I'll spend a couple of minutes just talking about what they are and who Michael Gurion was and is. He's fortunately still alive and in business, but not making guitars anymore. Michael Gurion is a luthier. He's a guitar maker. He started in mid-60s, I believe 1965. He opened his first shop, started making guitars, classical and steel strings. He changed his location a couple of times as his business grew. By early 70s, it turned into a fully blown factory. It wasn't a large factory, but they were making hundreds of guitars per year. The factory had a fire somewhere in late 70s. It recovered, moved to a new location, built guitars for a few more years, and unfortunately had another very devastating fire. At that time, the factory closed its doors. I believe it was 1981. So the total span of Gurion guitars was about 15 or 16 years, but the actual factory environment where there were many guitars made probably only spanned, I don't know, about 10 or 12 years. During this time, there were about 5,000 guitars made, a little over 5,000. Some sources say that 5,300 or something. Since the closure of the factory in 1981, I've heard that there were few guitars made later in 82, 83, up to 85 or 86, but those were just a few guitars that were made from the parts that were manufactured before the fire. So literally, we're talking about 15 years of existence for Gurion guitars. After that, Michael Gurion went on to sell guitar parts. He's still in business. You can still go on internet and search for Gurion guitars and find his website and see many things that he makes, but not guitars, unfortunately. Michael Gurion had a very different vision. He was a pioneer, like I said, in guitar making. At the time, in 60s, pretty much everyone followed either Martin guitars or Gibson guitars. They were the most popular. They made most guitars. And as we know, Martin was known for dreadnoughts and orchestra models. Gibson was known for slop shoulders and jumbos. And this is what everyone was trying to build. They would take Martin recipe and maybe try to improve a few things, or a Gibson recipe and try to improve a few things and make their own design, their own guitars based on that. Michael Gurion went completely different. His guitars look nothing like it was at the time. Right nowadays, there are so many luthers and so many guitar makers and so many shapes and sizes that maybe it doesn't sound so exciting. But at the time, there was almost nothing. There maybe was an individual guitar maker that created something, but no one knew anything but Martin or Gibson designs. There were other factories like Guild, but they mostly did the same thing. So let's go to the actual guitar and see what I'm talking about. This is Gurion guitar. If you look at the body shape, you will see that it doesn't look like anything. It has a too wide of a waist for jumbo. It doesn't look like orchestra model. It doesn't look like dreadnought. It's just its own shape. This is what he came up with. His bracing system was a traditional X brace, but it's unscalloped. It has, it has its own things going in there. It's a standard X brace, but it has its own shape of braces, and it has a pretty large breech plate, which was surprising to me, because my idea, my understanding of the guitar making is that you actually try to make breech plates smaller in order for top to vibrate better, but that's not necessarily, the rule or truth. Taylor actually makes pretty large plates, and they sound great in their own way. This guitar doesn't sound nothing like Taylor, nor Martin, nor anything else. If there is any guitar out there that this may sound similar to, in my opinion, and this is strictly my humble opinion, it reminds me of a Larrivee somewhat, but even that is different. Anyhow, going back to the guitar, you can see herringbone around the top and around the sound hole. The bridges on Gurion guitars, from what I've seen online, and I only seen one other Gurion guitar in person, but what I see online is all bridges are rosewood. The fingerboards are always ebony, and it's a pretty standard headstock. Now, there are a couple of things on this particular guitar that are different from most of them. First of all, there is no Gurion logo here. I would guess that it was removed for some reason, but normally there would be a large G letter here for Gurion guitars, or after they moved to their last location, I think they changed it to a large G letter and word Gurion across. Well, there is no logo here, so I don't know if it was never there or if it was removed. I would assume it was removed. Excuse me. Same goes for a pickguard. As far as I know, all Gurion guitars came with a black plastic pickguard. This one doesn't have one, and I don't see any traces of it. So it looks like it was never there. However, I can see a lot of playwear here. You can probably see it in the video too. Now, I would assume that someone removed it, maybe the original owner, but no one who plays with a pick and knows that he's going to scratch the top is going to intentionally remove pick guards. So I don't know how many owners this guitar changed. Therefore, I can't tell for sure. Maybe the original owner, played with fingers like I do. I don't use a pick, so I don't need pick guards. In fact, I don't really like them that much, but they come standard in most guitars. So maybe original owner removed the pick guard, and then the next owner played with a pick and didn't bother to put one on. Anyways, we have what we have here. So this is the Gurion guitar. It does have a model number and serial number on the neck block. It does have an internal label. So just the pick guard and logo decal on the headstock is missing. Gurion made classical guitars. Some of them, we're not going to discuss those now, but for steel string guitars, he made 3 sizes. He made, well, it's basically small, medium, and large, but small one was style 2, medium one was style 3, and this is what this guitar is. It's style 3, and there was a slightly larger one that was called jumbo. I don't know why it was 2, 3, and then instead of 4, it was J for jumbo, but that's what it is again. This is probably the best example because it's right in between 3 sizes. It's right in the middle, so you get an overall Gurion sound from it. He used spruce for tops, almost without exception. I've seen maybe 1 or 2 guitars that claim to be cedar top, but again, I've seen them online, so I don't know what the actual top is. This is what the sellers or owners said, that they're cedar, but technically all Gurions are supposed to be spruce. For the backs, he used either mahogany like this one or a rosewood, Indian rosewood. There were some Gurions that had Brazilian rosewood. All those that I've seen had three-piece back, like Martin D30, like Martin 35 style, three-piece back. But I only seen a few, so I don't know. Maybe there were two-piece Brazilian rosewood Gurions. I just don't know about them. There were also some guitars that had Hawaiian core on the back. Also very rare, only seen one or two online. That's what, in a nutshell, that's what Gurion looks like. The other interesting feature was that the necks are very slim. This neck is only 1 5/8 of an inch, which is slimmer than any other acoustic guitar that I know of. Usually the size of the width of the neck is 1 11/16 of an inch, or what's considered in today's standard is 1 3/4 of an inch or wider for fingerstyle guitars. This one actually has a neck that's very similar to electric guitar neck. And I already said twice that he was a pioneer in his field. Well, one of the things that he invented a couple of things that were very interesting, but the major thing that he invented was a neck and body connection. As we all know, there are basically two styles of connection. There is either a bolt-on necks, which is a more modern connection, or there is a dovetail, which goes back to 120, 130, 150 years, and that's what Martin uses on all their models, or actually used until recently. Well, at the time in 60s, there was no bolt-on necks, and Michael Gurian actually came up with what eventually turned into a contemporary bolt-on neck. This is a mortise and tenon joint with two dowels going through it. So if you unglue the fingerboard extension, go inside the guitar and pull those two dowels out, you can actually separate the neck from the body. It was a great idea at the time because it would supposedly make neck reset much, much easier. You didn't have to unglue the dovetail, and it's always a problem. Even in contemporary world, ungluing dovetail is somewhat complicated. At the time where tools weren't as advanced as today, it was even bigger issue. So he resolved that issue. However, there was one major flaw in his design, and I'm sorry, I'm sure Michael would not come across this video, so I can be a critic here for a second. So here's what happens. Imagine that your neck is removed and you have a heel, and you have a heel extension that has two holes for the dowels. And you have a neck block that also has two holes for the dowels. When you do a neck reset, as we all know, you have to file down the heel to change the angle, and that will change the angle of the entire neck. Strings will go closer to the fingerboard, and this is how reset is done. Well, imagine this. You have this heel, and you have this block, and you have holes in them. Once you file down the heel and put the neck back, your holes will not align anymore. And that's a major issue, because the only way to resolve it is to plug the holes in your neck, in your heel block, plug those holes, put it back, mark dots for the new holes, and then re-drill the holes. In theory, it's not that complicated, but this is all needs to be done inside the guitar. There is very limited space here and very hard to be precise. And you have to be precise, because if you go, even if you go 16 of an inch off away from the actual hole in the neck block, everything is going to be ruined. So I've seen, again, online, I've seen many of these Gurions converted to bolt-on neck. Basically what people do, they plug the holes, they drill holes this way, they put bolts or they put nuts, depending on how you go with this. And then you drill through the neck block and make it a bolt-on neck. I don't particularly like this because I like for guitar to be as original as possible, but in this particular case, maybe it's a better solution because from the standpoint of the construction, it doesn't change much. It doesn't affect the sound at all. And it's much easier to do a neck reset next time around. So going to this particular guitar, I always wanted to own a Gurion just to try it. I mean, I have lots of guitars and I have limited budget like most of us. And I always want to try everything out there. Obviously, Gurion is not something I could play in the store, and no one I know owns one. So the only way for me to really play with it is to own one. There isn't many of them out there because, as I said, there were about 5,000 made, and I would venture into a guess that about half of them are gone now because all of them are 40 to 50 years old. But if you go on Reverb and eBay, usually you can see a few for sale. They normally go from about $1,500 to $2,500. Lately, all prices went up, so it's probably close to $2,500. But even a couple of years ago, you can have one for about $1,500, $1,700 in a decent condition. It wouldn't be a perfect condition, but it would be acceptable. And I was kind of looking around for a couple of years thinking about getting one when suddenly I saw a guy selling a Gurion for, I don't remember exact price, but it was right around $1,000, which is significantly cheaper than others. Well, there was a catch. Guitar needed a lot of work. Guitar had separation here. Well, it's a crack, but it's really a top separation. It had a large, nasty open crack right here. You can still see the scar. It was uneven and it was open. The guitar had a separation here in the back. It wasn't all the way through, but you can feel it almost all the way through from top to bottom. The guitar had a very nasty crack right here where you can also see a scar. This one was half open like this. And also there were fingerboard extension cracks, which you can't probably see in the video, but they are there. So the neck block was probably slightly shifted. The bridge was almost out. It was lifting so badly that I could almost stick a finger in there, almost. And obviously guitar needed a neck reset. Therefore, the price was reasonable. In his description, he said that he went to a music store, some known shop, and they said that they worked with Gurions before, they know how to reset them, and the entire works to reset the neck and get everything else done would be $850. He thought this is a lot of money. This is more than half of what this guitar was. So he would just rather sell it cheaper and have somebody else do the work. Well, it was perfect for me because fixing all these cracks, regluing the bridge and doing, setup and all other things wasn't a problem. The only concern I had is with the reset because of everything that I explained before. It's pretty difficult to reset Gurion, but I figured that I'll give it a shot. It would be an interesting project. And if it doesn't work, if I just can't align it, I would just turn it in, like I would turn it into a bolt-on neck. I would convert it to a bolt-on neck. Again, this is not something I would prefer to do. I would definitely try to do the right way first, but this guitar is so beat up with all the cracks and finish checking and, and use and everything else that it wouldn't really matter. I mean, I wouldn't feel bad converting it to a bolt-on neck. So I got the guitar, I tuned it up and immediately detuned it because that bridge was so bad. I felt like it could fly any second. I didn't even play it. I just took a few notes and just let it go. Removed strings, went inside, and to my surprise, I couldn't find the dowels. I went inside with my hand, and my finger just go into the hole. Nothing held the neck. I was puzzled because I took a wire and I could actually put a wire through one of the holes all the way through. In the other hole, my wire got stuck somewhere, but it got stuck somewhere in the middle. So there was definitely no dowels there. At the time, I realized that whoever did the last reset just glued the neck solid. They poured the glue, they stuck the neck, they glued the extension and just let it go. Well, that was the end of it. It can't be reset because this is not dovetail. This is a mortise and tenon, and they probably put the glue all over the mortise and tenon. You can't unglue it in a normal way. You can't, I'm sure that you know that guitar makers and guitar repairmen, they just drill a hole, he removed the fret, drill a hole here, put heat in there and just unglue the neck from the neck block, but that's not the case. So I spoke with the seller again, and I said that I want to return this guitar because it's not as described. I was going according to this description that this shop said that they can do a neck reset. Apparently, this shop didn't really look inside. They just look at the guitar, they knew what Gurion is, and they gave him an estimate. Well, the seller is a very nice guy, but at this point, he realized that this guitar is, only good for a garbage because who is going to do this kind of job? And if they do, this is going to be thousands of dollars to get it all repaired, and this guitar doesn't cost nearly that much. So he asked me if I would keep it if he gave me an extra discount. And I'm not equipped to do this kind of work myself. I have a shop, but I mostly only do small repairs. The resetting a dovetail neck I can do, but working with something like this, I didn't know how extensive it should go or it will go. But fortunately, I have a friend who is very good with woodworking. He knows nothing about guitars, but he knows a lot about wood, and he has a very good shop with machinery and everything. I call him up. I know this guy for years. He's actually one of my best friends. And I asked him if he's up for this project, and he said he is. So I agreed to take a partial refund and keep the guitar. Once I had the guitar in my possession and I knew that I own it, I removed the fingerboard and I saw that neck block and the heel extension are just glued solid. There is no way I could unglue it by hitting through the fingerboard. I have a STU-MAC needle that heats up and used to hit the neck block. So we made an extension that is like a flat piece of metal instead of that needle that heats up, and we try to use that extension to go through the glue in between heel extension and neck block. That didn't work at all. We spent like 2 hours, and after 2 hours, no results. So the only option was to cut off the neck. I really didn't want to do it. It's not the way it should be done, but it was either that or just throwing the guitar away. We cut the neck off. We took it to my friend's shop. We removed the remaining of a heel extension from the neck block, and we rebuilt the heel. There was also a slight crack in the heel itself. It was very slight, but as we were trying to remove the neck, I saw how it gets bigger. Excuse me, and I knew it would be a problem in the end. So we actually filed the heel down a little and added a piece of wood here to reinforce the entire heel. And we built a new heel extension, and we screwed it with 2 screws into the existing part of the heel, but also used a very strong epoxy to glue it. So it's probably as strong, if not stronger, as the original heel was right now. Obviously, from the cosmetical standpoint, it didn't look as good. So I had to, as you can see here, there is a black line going around the hill. This is a new wood that I added. And that wood is different. It's not mahogany. We actually use a harder wood. And I had to kind of mask it with a black stain. It doesn't look bad in my opinion. Of course, it doesn't look as good as the original, but again, we were trying to save this guitar. Well, once we built the heel back, we obviously used a bolt-on construction. So there were two bolts in that extension that went through. We drilled through the neck block, and the rest was a basic bolt-on neck reset. Now, it sounds easy, but it took a lot of time and a lot of effort. It took us actually 2 tries to get a perfect heel extension. And it was something that is, you know, I'm sure it's been done before many times by other people, but this is not something that you can go online and just see a video of how it's done. So we kind of worked with our own ideas here. It ended up being pretty good. Guitar plays and, you know, plays with ease. The action is perfect. Everything is great, except cosmetically, we could probably do it a little better if we've done it before. But since it was our first and probably last time we did something like that, there were a few things that we had to hide because it wasn't perfect cosmetically. So I glued the extension back. I actually had to do it twice, unfortunately, because we missed a little bit in our calculations first time. Again, fortunately for me, this guitar is so used, you can see that back hardly has any finish left. So by me removing the extension and putting it back twice didn't really make much change. It doesn't look much worse or any worse than it was originally. Guitar is fine. It plays, it sounds very good. It has a very even sound, great note-to-note separation. It has strong sound, lots of volume. It doesn't sound like a dreadnought. It doesn't have that boominess. It's probably sounds more like a fingerstyle guitar. It has a great sustain. I didn't expect it, but this is probably due to the construction. It sustains forever. And it's easy to play. Another thing that was kind of challenging is because the neck is so thin, the strings go very close to the edge of the neck on both sides, which means when you do a reset, if you go even quarter or half a degree off on one side, your strings are going to run right off. I mean, you have very little room for error. But again, fortunately for me, because it was a bolt-on construction at the time, not a dovetail, it's a lot easier to align a bolt-on neck. You have more room, you know, you can do more with a bolt-on neck when it comes to adjustments. It's easier. It's not that you can do more really, it's just that it's a lot easier to do. And that's what I did. So as you can see, the neck is perfectly straight, and I'm talking about perfectly straight from one side to another. It's actually, it has a very healthy relief, maybe a hair more than my contemporary guitars, but very close. It has a very good string height. It doesn't buzz anywhere, although I had to work with frets a lot. I did a lot of leveling of the frets here. And it has a pretty high saddle, so if neck continues to move a little over the years, you still have a lot of room to go down before it's going to need another reset. And when it needs another reset, hopefully it will be pretty easy, because now it just bolts that, well, you can probably see it right now. You can see the bottom bolt. There is a top bolt above it. Here it is. Yeah. So it's going to be pretty easy to reset next time around. This guitar used to have a pickup on it at some point, and then it was removed and holes were left in the bridge and on in a back block here. I had an old not an old, but just used LR Baggs pickup, which was very nice. Works perfectly. So I figured I might as well install it since everything is pre-drilled for a pickup. I put it in. It sounds really nice. I really don't want to do a sound test here for this video because I'm not equipped with good microphones to take the actual sound. And if I do a sound test with a pickup, as you know, you will hear the piazza pickup more than the guitar itself. That's about it. That's what it is. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to me or comment on YouTube. I'll be happy to answer whatever I can. I can tell you that I'm not a guitar maker. I am more of a hobbyist tech. I do lots of repairs, but nothing too extensive. If you gave me just pieces of wood, I probably wouldn't be able to put a guitar together. I know how to. I know the construction, but I haven't done it. I'm not equipped for that, nor really have a desire to make a guitar from scratch. But as far as repair goes, I do some, and this is probably one of the most complicated projects I took on, at least up to date. But it was a lot of fun, and I really like this guitar. I mean, I will probably put it for sale at some point because how many guitars do I need? But I will probably miss it after I sell it, as we all do with a lot of our guitars. I hope it was interesting for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you around.